What's up with everybody? It's your man William B.
And Nicole.
And we're back into some more reaction video. This is a special video request from Jonathan Reed. He be supporting our channel.
Super supporter,
man. He's amazing. All our supporters are amazing on YouTube. Our subscribers, Streamlab donators, everybody. So the name of this video is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Understanding Comics number 3. I'm just going to have something to do with Superman, I'm guessing.
Obviously, yeah.
The Man of Tomorrow. Man of Tomorrow, man.
Superman.
Yeah, so we're definitely excited about this. And we'd like to say again, thank you, Jonathan Reed, for your donation. And before we dive right into it, if you want to donate, check out the link to our Streamlabs. It's going to be in our cars. It's going to be in our YouTube and screen. It's going to be everywhere. Check it out. Let's dive right into it. Can't stand Superman themselves. Oh, wonder why.
It was in June of 1938 that the first Superman story saw print in Action Comics number 1. Little more than 48 years later, the pages of Action Comics number 583 would present readers with the final Superman story, Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which begins with the claim, "This is an imaginary story, aren't they all?" While Moore could have been remarking on any number of things, it is difficult with hindsight to see this as anything other than a statement of surrender for a Superman gradually losing his audience. In recent weeks we've explored how the comic book medium entered adolescence and began the prolonged period of angst in which popular culture still finds itself today. For darker characters, this tonal shift was a welcome change that validated earlier works such as Iron Man, Demon in a Bottle, and would lead to modern stories such as Daredevil, End of Days. Other characters fared far worse, but perhaps none more so than the Man of Tomorrow himself. An indestructible alien decried by commentators for his old-school morality, perfect human appearance, and impeccable moral compass, features which allegedly render him inaccessible as a character. In recent times, Superman's inextricable connection to American society has itself become one of the largest arguments for his waning relevance. And indeed, whether by chance or design, Superman has long been the perfect analogue for America, a seemingly unstoppable superpower envied in every corner of the world, and powered by an essential optimism, stemming from the virtue of absolute egalitarian order and justice for all. A description which seems terribly quaint in today's climate of white-collar crime and failed foreign policy.
True.
It is then fitting that the decline of American society has been paralleled closely by Superman's own struggle to maintain his audience, and it follows logically that creators would attempt to write stories which combat these perceived problems. The David S. Goyer story, The Incident, is a good place to begin. A story which sees Superman peacefully intervening in the Middle East and subsequently surrendering his US citizenship, tired of his actions being construed as instruments of US policy. But such blatant attempts at updating the mythology are troubled by depictions of a Superman acutely aware of his metatextual link to the narrative of American society, and often serve to ironically compound the problem, further cementing Superman as a character too deeply mired within his own identity to be truly aware of the world as it changes around him. The struggle to meet the demands of critics while maintaining Superman's essential goodness is a difficult one, and often paradoxical in the face of complaints targeted at the character's moral center. This paradox is our first hint at the unreasonable nature of such criticism, bemoaning a character for failing to be another character entirely. Yet, this impossibility has not kept writers from trying. The 2010 graphic novel Superman Earth 1 is among the worst offenders in the category of Superman stories about Batman. Billed as a Man of Steel for a new generation, the story by J. Michael Straczynski reimagines the death of Krypton as a deliberate act of war by a neighboring planet, and thereby manages to alter Superman's raison d'etre to what his spacecraft describes as a mission to avenge the murder of your homeworld. Pa Kent is reduced to a collection of soundbites, not encouraging his son down a heroic path, but rather foreshadowing the moment Clark would lose his self-control in an act of blind rage, the result of the book's climactic battle being unsurprising, if disappointing. But worse still is the fact that these decisions fail to humanize Superman, as Earth 1 goes to extended lengths in its early pages to show Clark as a prodigy in every area to which he turns his hand. The sum total of these choices is a Superman as equally bereft of reader sympathy as he is of higher moral standards. This insight leads us well towards the modern screen version of Superman, which manages to epitomize the very worst of the character, while
Man,
stealing
it's
its
going
best
down.
ideas and
Sinking.
moments from its comic book superior. Man of Steel shamelessly lifts for tomorrow's ecclesiastical imagery, but fails to heed the book's fundamental message, which goes to some lengths to differentiate Superman from God, the film reductively opting to align the two. Man of Steel is similarly glad to appropriate Jor-El's legendary speech to Kal-El from All-Star Superman, though it fails to resonate entirely when the film's ending leaves us with a truly unappealing version of Superman to which to aspire. The jokey tone of the scenes following the showdown failing to capture the essence of a being for whom all life is sacred, murder being an act which would see past iterations spent years in exile. Man of Steel writer David Goyer attempts to justify this decision by writing Kal-El into a situation where murder is the best and only real choice, thereby making it unavoidable. And yet this argument fails entirely because we are regardless left with an utterly uninspiring version of Superman, suggesting that the best method of avoiding Zod's murder would be simply not writing such a story. Goyer's justification for this ending perfectly encapsulates many modern Superman writers who can often be heard proclaiming a need to update heroes so as to maintain their relevance. And yet, ironically, the failure of such revisionism provides the best argument for Superman's traditional virtues. Against the backdrop of a stable of popular characters and action heroes willing to take and belittle the value of life, Superman's ideology is now more important than ever before, not because of its malleability to these newcomers, but rather its capability to withstand these challenges. Furthermore, the simple fact that Superman's beliefs are no longer predominant amongst other heroes or even popular does not make them irrelevant. On the contrary, dissenting voices become arguably more important as they reduce in number. Books such as Kingdom Come and What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way are notable for their discussions of Superman's unyielding morality, confronting questions of popular justice and the case for the utilitarian hero. Characters such as Magog, who kills the Joker and beats Superman's approval rating, and the Elite, who turn children away from Superman's example with their misdeeds, challenge Superman's place in society by providing a more popular and easier approach to subduing the criminal classes, and create a platform on which to explore Superman's staunch morality. Unwilling to kill even to save a greater number of lives, these stories suggest Superman is more complex than those heroes content to commit murders in the name of the greater good. The ends cannot justify the means, whether or not the world is watching, and so it goes that Superman overcomes these heroes by winning this argument rather than resorting to their less scrupulous methods. The importance of setting an example is explained by an essential observation from the Spectre in Kingdom Come. Superman's greatest and most necessary failing, his inability to perceive himself as the inspiration he is. Unfortunately, it seems this flaw also extends to Superman's writers, the Supermen of Man of Steel, Earth-1, and to a lesser extent, the New 52, validating the pursuit of vengeance by positioning Superman as subordinate to New Age heroes, rather than presenting him as a mentor. Attempts to create a darker Superman are further undermined by the fact that a great measure of darkness exists in this character's lore. While never entirely true that Kal-El is the last Kryptonian, his tragic isolation is an essential feature of his history. Alan Moore's For the Man Who Has Everything is regarded as one of the finest Superman stories, and it is likely no coincidence that it depicts an unrecognizably raw and angry Superman, but does so in a way that feels authentic and earned. Coming under attack from Mongul on his birthday, Superman is trapped by a hypnotic flower that realizes the mind's deepest desire and destroys said version upon separation from its host. A livid Superman unleashes a savage beating upon his enemy for forcing him to once again live through the death of his people. Compared with such deep-set trauma, the artificial moodiness of the New 52 version of Superman feels lackluster and odd. The New 52 run being one already fraught with questionable changes to the character and his abilities, the waning of which coincide with the appearance of a more impulsive Superman defined by moodiness and aggression.
Weird.
This interplay may also be criticized for taking a rather cynical view of the man, suggesting that his optimism is merely an extension of his supernatural abilities to be drained simply by contact with irradiated space rocks. By contrast, a story like 2006's Up, Up and Away depicts a depowered Superman happy to continue his crusade for justice as the well-loved Clark Kent, possessed of all the optimism and willpower that characterize the Man of Tomorrow. Elseworlds tales take a similar approach to the sequestration of ideology and power, rewriting Superman's origin story by changing the location of his crash landing, but plotting a trajectory towards a more traditional Superman figure. Red Sun imagines an alternative history in which Superman landed on the other side of the Cold War, growing up to lead the Communist Party's spread across the world. Speeding Bullets, on the other hand, sees Kal-El adopted by the Wayne family and eventually accept the mantle of a superpowered Batman. Despite their significant changes to the lore, the ultimate resurgence of optimism in these stories suggests that what is constant in the character of Superman is not his Anglo-centric identity or power set, but rather his will to preserve life and pursue justice for all. In this vein, author Ben Saunders points to the myriad religious and mythological figures Superman appears to represent, ranging from the ubiquitous Jesus of Nazareth, model of ultimate virtue, to Moses of Egypt, a savior figure escaping deadly peril as a child, to demigod Hercules, half mortal, half god. Here, Saunders invokes Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, arguing that Superman should not be reduced to a reincarnated version of a particular religious figure, but rather read as a sustained pop-cultural effort to comprehend the nature of virtue. But all this says nothing to explain why Superman is a beloved character in fiction, an argument best made by the Eisner Award-winning All-Star Superman. Set in the final year of Superman's life after Lex Luthor fatally overexposes Superman's cells with solar radiation, All-Star borrows the classic comic book devices of the isolated continuity and the hero's final trials to spectacular effect, telling a story as dated and outmoded as it is melancholic and refreshing. Empowered by the firm belief that there is always a way, and possessed of enhanced curiosity, imagination, and creativity, All-Star pays tribute to decades of Superman's history, with each new chapter providing closure for another aspect of the mythology. The reveal of Superman's identity, a decisive confrontation with superpowered Lex Luthor, and one cut with a trip into the Underverse, the restoration of Kandor, and a time-traveling odyssey to visit Park Kent one last time, a chapter that demands to be noted. In this version of events, young Clark Kent encounters 3 Supermen from the future, traveling through time in pursuit of the time-devouring Chronovore. Unwilling to heed their warnings, Clark intervenes to protect his home, and the Chronovore devours 3 precious minutes of his life, in which time Jonathan Kent's heart gives out.
What?
A book as powerful and genuinely sad as it is uplifting. Later chapters see Superman visiting sick children with an army of micro-Kryptonian doctors, and even a page dedicated to saving the life of a lost teenager standing on the precipice. All-Star delivers a Superman story for the ages, and in so doing speaks directly to those among us longing for the triumphant days of yore. But writer Grant Morrison is far from alone in that desire. Stories like Tom Taylor's The Man of Yesterday from his Injustice prequel comic read as an elegy for a Superman long forgotten or dismissed by modern audiences. The story of a young boy with a busted bicycle tire hitching a lift home with Supes is a sentimental one and does not contribute to the overall series narrative, but still manages to be more powerful than any high-stakes modern plot. The reveal at the story's end of a college-age version of the boy, despondently watching Superman unleash his rage, is a devastating treatise on Superman's graduation into a modern character. And yet, even in the face of such a disheartening state of affairs, hope always remains. Indeed, that appears to be the key tenet of the Man of Tomorrow. Time after time we see a return to Superman stories which salute the power of dreams and the imagination. When accused by Chester Black of living in a dream world, Superman replies, "I wouldn't have it any other way." The outstanding Superman Secret Identity leverages its surrealist art to create a Superman bound to reality through a protagonist who gains his abilities under suspiciously dreamlike circumstances. Even the incredible 10th chapter of All-Star Superman sees the creation of a new universe which, by issue's end, has created a Superman all of its own. And then there's this, Moore's question from Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. This is an imaginary story, aren't they all? To re-examine this cue, perhaps being imaginary is not a statement of surrender at all. Perhaps it is a valiant defiance of the ordinary, of succumbing to darkness, of giving in. Superman's idealism and perfect moral standards may be too lofty to exist anywhere other than the purest plane of the imagination, and yet it finds a way to permeate the real world. showing each of us that we can climb higher and fight harder than we ever thought possible. A unique perspective only visible to someone who could never truly belong.
Well, that's pretty cool, man.
That was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like the guy that was speaking. I guess he didn't really like the Superman movie, the storyline of the Superman movie, and then the other Superman. It was like a modern look, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he was basically saying that they feel like the modern Superman stories are a little more darker. They're not maybe as holding true to the old Superman.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
But he also said that Superman's like waning in popularity, but I didn't think that was the case.
No, I
So
think
I don't
so
know.
neither.
We were just saying like, the first 40 years super popular, but then now Superman stuck to his ideals, didn't really change, so to speak, on like wanting to kill and stuff. And then a lot of the new superheroes are a little more gritty and so those are more popular. Which I guess I can see that. But I think that is one of the things that really like makes you like gravitate towards Superman is that he is that idealistic superhero and he doesn't change. Like he sticks to his ideals.
Yeah, like that savior complex.
Yeah.
Right.
And I actually really liked the Man of Steel movie.
Yeah, I watched a lot
one.
of it, but I kind of fell asleep on it, so I got to go back and watch it. But yeah, definitely a great video. Jonathan Reed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your request and your support of the channel. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. But we're about to go in this video. If you want to support our channel, check out the links to our Streamlabs. It's going to be in the description. It's going to be on our YouTube cards. It's going to be in our annotations. Check it out before you leave and leave a video request for us.
Also, check out our new vlog channel. The link will be down in the description.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And thumbs it up.
Turn on notifications. It's your man, Maria B.
And Nicole.
We're going to catch you on the next day. Awesome. Peace and love, baby.